Hey nerds, I am Brett, longtime friend and supporter of Love Thy Nerd. You may have heard of some of the projects that I've worked on, including this little bean of mine. Amazing, delicious coffee. We have an LTN inspired blend, the Matt and Bubba in the morning blend. Uh, Delicious breakfast blend. Highly recommend. I also wanted to share a little bit about an organization I'm doing some work with called Morning Glory. It's a small Christian school in San Raimundo, Guatemala. I recently joined the board of the school, and they're doing amazing things down there, and would love for anybody to check that out at morningglorystory.org. So, without any further ado, I'll hop into this Bible Thump devotional. One of the things about me, I absolutely love cozy. I love anything and all things cozy. I literally created a coffee company because I love the idea of sitting down, relaxing, and enjoying just some cozy time to relax and read or do whatever. It's one of my favorite things. I love cozy books. Just anything that's just low stakes and relaxing. I've got enough high stakes stuff in my life, but I just love, relaxing with those cozy books. But I really, really love cozy video games. Recently, my wife and I got into Cozy Grove, which has been just a nice little blast, kind of an Animal Crossing light. I love Animal Crossing, and the very peak for me on the cozy video gaming is Stardew Valley. It's one of my top played games. My hours pale in comparison to many of my friends, but I currently have about 220 hours in Stardew Valley, moving around the town, interacting with the folks, planting seeds, starting a farm. Like, this all sounds just so relaxing. And I've spent so much time just loving and enjoying Stardew Valley and just that feeling of coziness. And I've seen a handful of memes that kind of point out the kind of oxymoron around cozy video games, things like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, or even a book about opening a coffee shop. All of these things center around work. And so I see these memes that are like, I need to hurry up and get off work so that I can relax by pretending to work. And so why is that? Like, everything around Stardew Valley revolves around work. You have to go out there and hoe each little square in order to plant the seed. Then you have to water each little square when you're first starting out. Even the relationships are work. You have to go and get gifts and interact with people. Like, everything about the game revolves around work. And so why do we do that? Why do we move from work to do more work in order to relax? Everyone always says, we don't like work. Like, isn't that like just like a blanket? Like, don't we all dislike work? Years ago, I worked for a really big coffee retailer. I won't mention too much due to personal conflict of coffee interest. But when I worked the drive-through, people would come through to the window. I love talking and engaging with people, and they would often talk about work, and they would talk about it being stressful. And I would ask them, "Do you like what you do?" And probably 95% of them were like, I really do. And sometimes I would ask if I had, enough of a rapport with them, I'd be like, well, then, what is it about it? And they say, well, it's work. You're supposed to not like it. We're often told that work is the product of the fall of Adam and Eve. And so Adam and Eve, they lived in paradise. And then after the eating of the fruit, they were cursed with work. But that's not what Genesis 3 says. Genesis 3, depending on the translation, says like painful labor or toiling. After all, we do know that there was work in the garden before the fall, and work is described in heaven. When we get there, that there will be work for us to do, which sounds, a lot of people, to them that sounds not enjoyable. But we just established, like, we like work. We don't like toil. And so when we think about it, why do we take breaks from work to do fictionalized work? We know that if we're reading a book about starting a coffee shop, that the protagonist will end up, we know this is a cozy book because the protagonist ends up starting the coffee shop. It becomes a successful endeavor and a great career, and everything works out in the end. We know that in Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, that the amount of work we put in directly correlates to the amount of success that we have in the game. We know if we give this person this gift in Stardew Valley, they will like us more. We know if we plant seeds, sometimes seeds go bad, right, in Stardew Valley, but we know if we plant 15 seeds, we will make money, enough money for the character to live on and thrive, right? We know that the amount of work does not go to waste. And that's the curse, right? Like that's the struggle that we deal with, is oftentimes our work does not correlate with things. We toil. We spin our wheels. We work for a project that doesn't come to fruition, or we work really hard and then we're passed over for a raise or a promotion. And that's really tough. And there's a lot that I can describe about kind of the theology of work, what our work looks like in our life. But really, all humans long to be productive in some way, or at least most. They long to be productive in some way, and Christians are no different. So we feel that call with our work. We want to be productive in our vocation, but also our avocation, and sometimes our ministry, or even our personal ministry. And so that's what I want to kind of address. What is the work of a believer? And we're told the work of the believer in Matthew 28 is the Great Commission. And I won't read too much of that, but I want to get in. People often kind of fight over which one, which command in the Great Commission, go into all the world, teaching and preaching and making disciples and baptizing. And which of these is the command? And in Greek, there actually is, we can know because in the New Testament Greek, there's a command tense. And so just like we have present and past tense in Greek, there's a command tense. So we know which one it is, and it's to make disciples. And so that's the work, that's the job of every believer, regardless of our vocation, avocation, regardless of our ministry. Our actual job as Christians is to make disciples, which was the job of Christ, right? Like that's what Matthew 28 is, the Great Commission. That is Jesus giving us his work, his job. But it's summed up really nicely in 2 Timothy 4. And it says, preach the word, be ready in season and out of season, correct, rebuke, encourage with great patience and teaching. That is a summation of making disciples. But that Greek word there, preach, is the Greek word karuxo. In that passage, it's karuxon, and it actually is, personally, I believe, better translated as proclaim. So there are all these things. So proclaim the word by being ready, by correcting, by rebuking, and by encouraging with patience and teaching. And so that's how we proclaim the word. That's how we make disciples. That's how we do the job of a Christian. But oftentimes ministering to those in our lives feels just like toil. We feel like we are putting in the work and we are shut down. We put in the work and we're betrayed. I was recently working with a ministry that there were two ministries like side by side, and they got into just frivolous debates and ended up building a literal wall between the two ministries that are both claiming to serve Christ, right? And so ministry, even between Christians, and especially to people who may not be Christian, like, you can feel like toil. That's where, as Paul goes on in 2 Timothy, he continues on, and he encourages us with his own story. He says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. There is reserved for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day, and not only to me, but to all those who have loved his appearing. So he encourages us to do the same, to fight the good fight, to finish the race, to keep the faith. And then, one day, we might get to encounter that cozy life in heaven. And toiling doesn't get any easier. But one day, if we do those things, if we proclaim the word, and we finish the race, and we keep the faith, then we know that there is a crown reserved for us. And so that one day when we stand with our Savior, we hear those words about our work. Well done, my good and faithful servant. I have been Brett. Feel free to check out some of these things down below. thislittlebeatofmine.com for some very delicious coffee. And I would love for you to check out morningglorystory.org and see the awesome work that the ministry down there is doing in Guatemala. Thanks, and hope everybody has a great week.